Democrats aren't giving up. Democratic leaders in Wisconsin say the move was outrageous and are asking for a legal challenge. Camille El-Hassani, AlJazeera.
An influential Republican congressman is holding a hearing on Thursday on what he calls the radicalization of the American Muslim community. Civil liberty groups and prominent Muslim Americans have decried the hearings as misrepresentative of the millions of Muslims living in the U.S., but that's not stopping Congressman Peter King. Kristen Salumi reports from New York.
We know the extent of the threat that we face.
Homegrown Islamic extremism. Congressman Peter King calls it a clear and present danger. He wouldn't speak to Al Jazeera, but told Fox News.
This is a real threat, and I want the American people aware of it, and I want to see also what we're doing to combat it. Yeah. And also I'm calling on Muslim leaders to be more critical in denouncing it.
But American Muslims are drawing comparisons with Joseph McCarthy's infamous anti-communist hearings of the 1950s. They're joining with leaders from other faiths, calling on King to stop what they describe as a witch hunt.
Violence is not only a Muslim phenomenon, it is in every other communities, and to single out one community to say they are the one that bringing this issue or causing the problem rather than treat them as a solution is wrong. We want to be treated as partner, not as suspect.
Community leaders fear that the hearings will fuel anti-Muslim sentiment and demonstrations like this one, which took place recently at an Islamic charity event in California.
Muslims may be the target of Representative Peter King's hearings, but they're not waiting for an invitation to make their voices heard. They're speaking out with petitions and rallies like this one here in New York's Times Square to present their view of what it means to be Muslim.
We are the #1 trending topic on Twitter and on Facebook.
Celebrities have taken up the cause, standing alongside Muslim Americans even in the rain. Supporters point out that 48 out of 120 terrorist plots in the U.S. were discovered thanks to tips from the Muslim community.
Just because you have the right to build a mosque.
King counters with his own figures. He claims radical imams control more than 80% of American mosques. The New York congressman has his own complicated history with regards to political extremism. He defended the use of violence in civilian settings by the Irish Republican Army in the 1980s and once compared the leader of the group's political wing to George Washington. His critics say he should understand better than anyone that radicalism isn't unique to any one culture.
This is the message that we want to say to Congressman King. Let this be hearings against terrorism, against extremism, against radicalism, and how it comes about, and not make it hearings against Islam and Muslim organizations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank
King shows no sign of backing down. Thursday is expected to be the first of a series of hearings. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, New York.
Some other news from the Americas now. The governor of the U.S. state of Illinois has abolished the death penalty. Governor Pat Quinn also commuted the death sentences of all 15 prisoners on death row. Those sentences have been changed to life in prison. Illinois becomes the 16th state in the U.S. to outlaw the execution of convicted criminals. The suspect in January's mass shooting in Tucson, Arizona, has pleaded not guilty to dozens of new federal charges against him. Jared Offner is accused of the attempted assassination of a U.S. congresswoman and the murder of a federal judge, among other charges. The shooting left 6 people dead and 13 wounded. Haiti's 2 presidential candidates have articulated their plans for rebuilding the earthquake-torn country and restoring the authority of the state. One-time First Lady Milande Maniga and Michelle Mateli, a former pop singer, faced off in a debate on Wednesday. The runoff election is scheduled to take place next week, 4 months after an inconclusive first round. Still more to come from Washington in this news hour, including...
To the ship that has led the way time and time again, we say farewell.
The space shuttle completes its final mission.
In Pakistan, the Taliban has claimed responsibility for an attack on a funeral procession in the northwest of the country. At least 37 people were killed and 100 others injured in Wednesday's attack. Kamal Haider reports.
It became a race to save the lives of those caught by the bomb's deadly blast. The victims had been taking part in a funeral procession. Now it was a procession of wounded to hospital. Some would live, but many would die. This attack was cruel even by Pakistani standards. The attacker, a young boy, said to have been wrapped in a shawl. Just as the crowd prepared to pray, he detonated his bomb. The main target, the leadership of the anti-Taliban militiamen in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, a volunteer fighting force organized by the government in its long-running war against the Pakistani Taliban. They've been targeted before. 2 years ago, the head of the force was killed in a bomb attack. The Pakistani Taliban may be feeling some pressure here. However, almost every week, they remind the government in Islamabad that they remain a potent force in Pakistan. Kamal Haider, AlJazeera, Islamabad.
Now, the Republic of Ireland has a new government, and Enda Kenny has been elected as the country's new Prime Minister. The party leader of Fine Gael party has vowed to resolve the country's banking crisis, and he says he aims to renegotiate the terms of the country's bailout, making it more affordable for Ireland. Now, despite the global recession, there are more billionaires in the world now than ever before. One US magazine has published a list of who they are. Let's get back to Jane in Washington for the details. Jane.
And it's quite incredible, isn't it? A growing number of those billionaires are making their fortunes in Asia, reflecting significant changes in the global economy. The United States is still home to the world's wealthiest, up from 403 to 413 billionaires. But the world's richest man is in Mexico. Telecom tycoon Carlos Slim retains the top spot for a second year running. He increased his wealth by $20 billion last year, giving him a net worth of $74 billion. Microsoft founder Bill Gates might have beaten him, but philanthropic donations of roughly $30 billion reduced his personal pot to a mere $56 billion. Not far behind, US investment guru Warren Buffett with $50 billion. And for the first time in a decade, there are more billionaires in the Asia-Pacific region than Europe. China, for example, has doubled its number of billionaires to 115.
But in terms of Asia Pacific, the number of increase in billionaires is almost 40%, a huge increase in wealth. In terms of the BRICS, you saw Russia go from 62 billionaires to 101, Brazil from 18 to 30. And so what this underscores is that there is dynamism in the world economy, but it's not in the United States and it's not in Western Europe.
Need to find one. The US space shuttle Discovery's returned to Earth for the last time. Discovery touched down with her 6 crew members at Florida's Kennedy Space Center. John Terrett reports.
No matter how many times you see a shuttle landing, it never gets old. But the oldest space shuttle in NASA's fleet, Discovery, has now returned to Earth from its final voyage. For mission control, it was a bittersweet moment.
To the ship that has led the way time and time again, we say farewell, Discovery.